Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Ben from Universal Audio, and welcome to a very special Office Hours week. If you saw the email, if you saw that new intro trailer, if you see this new screen, that means that you are well aware that we are in Minimoog week. Unlike the 1084, this isn't a brand new release. The Moog launched alongside with Luna, but we figured, this is it's such a big part of what's possible with Luna, and we finally have an amazing animated trailer, which you just guys saw. We've got a Luna session for the song that you just heard in that trailer, which was composed by Atticus Russ from Nine Inch Nails, Social Network. Incredible composer and an incredible synthesis, if you will. Hopefully, you guys were all checking out. We had Jamie Liddell on the stream just before this show, taking over, kind of just making noise, having fun with synths and Luna and UAD. And he's going to be back this afternoon at 1 as well for part 2 of that. So feel free to check in on that. As you guys may see, we've added chat to our little intro screen. It's a whole new week. It's really fun. It's really awesome. We've got a ton of great names this week. Tycho's coming by later this afternoon. We've got Fart Barf on Friday. Houston Singletary. We've got Jimmy LaVale from the Album Leaf coming on. We've got Shay Pope, Ariel Rexshade. Fab is on here at 2 today. It's going to be a crazy week with a lot of shows. So I really hope you guys are excited for what we got in store this week. And of course, we're kicking this off with my very first guest, dialing in all the way across the pond over in Sweden. We've got Christoffer Berg. What's up, Chris?
Oh,
How you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you.
Nice. It's good to see you. You're at your home base in Sweden, yeah?
Yeah. I'm in my production room at Svenska Grammofonstudion in Gothenburg, Sweden.
Nice, awesome, man. Well, thanks for joining us. And so for anyone that's not familiar with you or some of the work that you've been doing, how are you connected with Moog, and how'd you kind of get into this whole synthesizer world?
Wow. Well, I first met the Moog people at I think at a NAMM show a couple of years back.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, I think it was through after working with Depeche Mode on Delta Machine. On one of my visits to Martin Gore's studio, we were trying some old modulars, and I was just gonna play a joke with Martin, triggering an envelope on this old Arias system that we used one of his, like a brand new Voyager XL, just for CV and gate purposes. And I was just going to play a joke with him, triggering that envelope on this old vintage modular, and somehow it sort of sent lots of current back to Moog. And it started to smell of burnt electronics. So,
ouch.
Yeah. So, so I kind of emailed them in panic. Like, it happened. Like, what do we do? Long story short, I mean, and then when they reintroduced their 55 modular system and 35, I was in Asheville to test it and to sort of show some other people, like their salespeople, how to make patches, and what the fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
That was an awesome experience, and they're awesome people. And and then I played at their booth at NAMM and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I went later, and I mean, yeah. I had lots of fun.
Right. And also, so you've been a UAD and Apollo user basically since day one as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I have.
That's awesome.
Yeah, since like I had a PCI card, like UAD1. So yeah, it was like a way for me then to to use, because like I was so lucky getting into, studios and stuff. Like we have some amazing studios in Gothenburg, and the first studio I worked in had a Neve console with modified 1073 EQs and all the classic gear. Like, and the guy who ran it wouldn't tell me what the good stuff was. It was like, try everything and see what you like.
Uh-huh.
And then he would come in later in the day, and I was like, this sounds amazing. And he was like, yeah, it should sound amazing, because that's a Fairchild.
Oh, just a little thing called a Fairchild. Yeah, it should probably sound incredible.
That was like, before these things were like modeled, and there were information everywhere online about this stuff. Like, I don't think gear slots existed, and it was like, so I was so lucky to learn what you can do with classic gear and like sweet spots on the gear itself. And I found that I could translate that knowledge into an in the box process with the UAD stuff easily.
Yeah. So when you think of sweet spots, what is a sweet spot kind of in your mind? Like, what are you looking for, and how do you kind of find those areas of a piece of gear?
Good question, because it's like, music technology and like studio, talking about sound and stuff has a lot of terminology that it's almost like management. So, like sweet spot and clarity and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's confusing. It's a good question. No, a sweet spot for me is like when a particular unit that you're trying to make it sing in a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's of course always codependent on the what like the old engineers that taught me would call the program material.
Mm-hmm. The kind of the average level, the energy level, right, of what's coming into it.
That's so funny with something like compressors and EQs. Like, you love it for something, but it just doesn't work for something else.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, the 1176, for instance, I used to not get that box at all.
Used to be, you're like, well, it's fast or really, really, really fast. Like, where are all these controls, right? You're like,
Compression took me 10 years.
uh-huh.
So I don't know. No, but something like yeah, anything like no, but back to the sweet spot. Like, a sweet spot is when you have like a certain sound or something that you're processing.
Mm-hmm.
Might have 5 different controls that you're working with.
Yeah.
And 4 of them might be right, and when you get the 5th one in just right,
Mm-hmm.
like that number 2 is a little bit off.
Yep.
And when it's like solving a Rubik's cube, and when you dial it in just right, and goosebumps appear on your arms.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sweet spot. When once all the stars align for you to get that perfect, like, yes, we have the sound.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole. That's the that's the magic trick. If you can get that right, and understand the complexity of it, and like that's the difference between someone that's really good and someone that's great. Like listening to a mix and go like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, the LA2 on the bass is just working too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Just go back.
Just open it up a little bit. Yeah.
And, open it up, and there it is.
Well, I mean, you nailed it, because it is, a mixing engineer's job, a producer, like, it's balance, right? Like, the whole thing is everything is in relationship with one another, whether it's one track with another track, or even, on an individual unit, speaking specifically about, say, something like a synth, it's, getting your attack and release times balanced with especially the filters of these things. Like, you've got the filter contour, you've got the cutoff frequency, you've got your sustain level. You've got three things that radically affect where that filter lands and what sort of action it has to it. So finding the sweet spot is the relationship between all of those different settings to something that, something that makes your hair stick up and just be like, ooh, okay, now I've got something special here.
And that's the cool thing about this new Minimoog, is how it's the first model that I've used that really has that quality from the original physical Minimoog. Because like, I'm talking about the external input trick, right?
Yeah.
When you feedback the sound onto itself.
Uh-huh.
If you control that, you really have you have the output volume. It's dependent on that. It's dependent on the sustain level of the loudness envelope. It's dependent on external input volume control. And it's dependent on your mixer settings.
Yeah. So, yeah, because if you have all the mixer settings, hanging out at 5, you're not hitting that. You're not going to drive it as hard as you are if they're all at 10. So same deal, right? You could be cranking that, and then you could have a ton of feedback kind of ready to go, but just use a little bit on the individual mixer knobs, or vice versa.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's why I love the Minimoog so much, because it's kind of in between a synthesizer and a distortion box.
Yeah.
And it creates these super interesting interrelations between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Because the mixer itself, you can overdrive the output from an oscillator into the filter.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I might be wrong, but I've read somewhere, but you read so much stuff, right? But I read that when they released the Minimoog, they realized, only hindsight, after it was released, that the internal feedback design on the filter was off, by way too much to the original design. But that's why it sounds so powerful and gritty and beautiful. And that's why musicians loved it. And that's an important thing about how Bob Moog worked. He collaborated a lot with musicians and listened to the people using his stuff and developed them together with musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah, well, that's and you're right, man. It's a musician's tool, and that's the thing that kind of is always. I guess you could say it surprised me a little bit. Is like the Minimoog itself. It's simple. It's not tons of bells and whistles, right? Like we've all got other synths in our studio that do 1,000 times more things to it, but yet so many people still they gravitate towards this Minimoog when they're just they quickly have a sound in their head that they want to create. It seems to be one of the most quick and inspiring sort of tools for shaping sounds. where do you start? Like, how, for people who maybe aren't as familiar with synthesizers, like, what's a good starting point, and how do you approach creating a sound on a Minimoog?
I mean, what I try to keep it simple, because that's the difference between a Minimoog Model D and almost everything else, is that you can have something super, super simple, and it will just sound amazing. And I found that after getting this, the one I'm using here is the reissue Minimoog that Moog released a couple of years back. And I mean, I'll just play a little bit on this sound that that's on right
just
now.
Wherever it is, yeah.
It always changes. Like, the sound that you get is dependent a little bit on what was there when you happen to show up. Like, this is just super, super simple.
Yep. And that was all three voices though, right? There we go. That's one.
Yeah. So right here, I'm using just a simple. What's this? Sawtooth. And then you just shape it, like tone the high ends down a little bit with the filter frequency, and then. I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah, just right there.
And the funny thing is that you can do this with the Moog, and I find myself not using any plugins at all on it.
Nothing.
Just record, set the volume right in the mix, and it's cool. And like, I've been on this trip for a bunch of years where I've tried to debunk magic in if you go around thinking that, like, boxes are magic, you never really understand, like, what's the thing they're doing that's so amazing.
Yeah.
But that's that thing. I'm yet to find out what makes that quality. Like, I don't know. It just is.
It just
as well. And that's what I find so cool about this Model D. It's like, I don't know, when I started playing it on the keyboard over here, stuff in the room start to vibrate and resonate with the sound. And you don't get that with everything. And I don't know, but it has that same vibrant quality that
that you know and love. And I mean, the other big thing though too is, like, just how many records the Minimoog has been on too. It's kind of this one of the things where it's ingrained in popular music and in dance music. It's kind of made itself available to every single genre. And if especially, like, say, take for instance, funk music, right? Like, funk synth bass lines are basically the Minimoog. Yeah. It's like you have a 80-20 chance of guessing right that it was a Minimoog if it's a funk bass line with a kind of a really crisp fat action to it. And that's, you hit it on the nail, man. It's like the presence of sound, the size and kind of immediacy that it gives, that's the soul. That's kind of the character of the Minimoog that, if we didn't nail that, then we wouldn't have released it, because it's something that, like, I'm sure as you're familiar with like how we emulate, the lengths that we go to when we're emulating pieces of hardware. The whole goal is not just to duplicate the functions or kind of like approximate what it sounded like. Our goal is to be soup to nuts. Like, everything about this is identical to the real thing as we can possibly make it in software form. If not, maybe in a few places try to add little tiny little bits of improvement that stay true to the original. So I remember you mentioned when you were first playing around with it that you put it through its paces, and you kind of tried to find the extremes and to see how it holds up at some extreme settings. What are those extreme settings that you like that you use to kind of confirm to yourself that it sounds like the real thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the external input volume feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
That was a classic trick that musicians used to do to get like even fatter low end.
Yeah.
Is to put like, because on the back it has like a low and high Z outputs.
Mm-hmm.
Get a chord either from there or from the headphone out socket.
Yeah.
Into the external input sockets, and then you could do this. Switch that on. Like on here, that's the overload indicator.
Mm-hmm.
So then the filter starts to behave super different. Like, just as an example, this is just like a straight
Single voice, right?
So let's just pick a note and let it ring. So it starts to self-oscillate, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I dial in the external inputs, you hear the resonance coming down.
Kind of.
And here it's almost gone.
Yeah.
It's still as high on the emphasis button. So this is without.
That's great.
It makes such a difference. Let me try to crank it all the way up. Like when you start like messing with a lower resonance setting,
Mm-hmm.
you almost get like a sub oscillator effect. So, sorry, I'm gonna lower the resonance now.
If people are listening to that on speakers right now, I'm sure they just got the full whoa. Like.
Yeah. Any brown note takers out there? Funny. I usually try to get it. Yeah, and then introducing another oscillator.
Oh man, that is the joy of it, right? It's like the dirtiness that you can get from it, because
And I'm only using this now for like, because it's so immediate when I turn the knobs and stuff, instead of you guys out there waiting for me to fiddle with the mouse and stuff. But that, I mean, I was like A-Bing back and forth, and it was like, yeah,
couldn't tell.
so that was like, yeah, impressive, super impressive.
Yeah. Well, do you mind similar to what you just showed us here of kind of like using the filter resonance feedback and just a simple patch? Do you mind jumping over onto the virtual one and just doing the exact same thing that we just showed, and so that way people can kind of A/B and hear that similarity for themselves?
Yes. Okay, let's try to get pretty much the same sound. Is this really low for you guys as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay, let's see what's up.
And you've just gotten started inside of Luna as well, right?
Yeah, it's super fun, but I feel like an old man. Like
Just kind of learning. You get to feel like a kid again, not like an old man. You feel like a kid again. That's what it is. Discovering it for the first time.
I think it's this old man is on an old computer.
The old computer is it doesn't seem like it likes Zoom very much.
Right. Do you want me to get off Zoom on this one? No.
No, because then we won't be able to see what you're doing, and that's half the fun. Try. It feels like it's in a weird place because it is so quiet. Try just unrecord enabling and record enabling this track again. So I'm sure this is relevant for a lot of people watching this at home as well, that every once in a while you'll notice like Luna may get into like weird states where it's not reacting exactly how you expect it to. You'd be surprised how many times like unrecord enabling or even just like closing the session and reopening it will sometimes restart. It kind of makes it rethink about where things are. There it is. What was it?
I restarted the plugin.
As I was saying.
Okay, I'm getting mad latency right now. I think it must be the Zoom thing.
Yeah, I think it's
all the notes.
Exactly. Yeah, as long as you do long notes and don't try to play any cool riffs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I think glitching a little bit.
I was like, between the glitches, you can hear the brilliance, right, guys?
Yeah. Ah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all good, man. It's glitching super weird right now.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's all
yeah,
good.
you kind of have to try it for yourselves out there. Take my word. This is great. I can just find sounds. Sometimes I'm afraid of changing a patch that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I found trying it out when it wasn't glitching. That's basically just dial in the same settings and save save it as a preset.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's one of the huge advantages of now like having one in the box, right? Is that you can save presets, you can load up other people's presets, you can kind of the amount of options that are presented to you now it feels much more limitless even than with the hardware one. Where kind of like I do the same thing where like I do it a lot with the modular behind my shoulder here. Where I'll leave it patched on a thing for weeks because I like it so much, and I'm like use it on one or two things, and then you're like, do I want to change it? No, I think I want to keep it. And then before you know it, like I'll get to a night like last night. I'm like, you know what? I love this patch, but it's time to let it go. And you just kind of undo everything, twist all the knobs, get everything reset, and go for something new. Which thankfully we don't have to do in the software world, but in the hardware world, it's a very real thing.
Yeah. No.
Nice. Well, and so it's what actually I think would work since the analog one is working just fine right now. Let's keep focused on that one. And I would love to kind of give people some more kind of like programming tips and how to approach it. And to me, one of the things that I kind of shy away from, I think, really getting the full power out of is that third oscillator. So when it just in general, do you find yourself using that oscillator as like a tuned voice, or do you kind of use it more as control, or is like what's your feelings and usefulness for that third oscillator?
I tend to use it as something that makes a sound.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing with the third oscillator is, let me go back to the screen. No, let me do it here. Like. So you can put it in and out of control mode, and put it in low, which makes you able to use it as an LFO.
Mm-hmm.
That the pitch is not affected by the CV coming from the keyboard.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I just tend to go towards. If you use a more dull waveform for the first oscillator,
mm-hmm.
And to like the further, the square wave, you can use it you get 3 different ramp settings. Do you say that? Or
yeah, so like the slope of it, yeah, you guys can see this over here on the GUI side too. Is like you see how the first one's very much like a triangle. Then you kind of come with this. That's what a sawtooth down and then a sawtooth up before you start getting into the pulse waves.
So this is that's the full cycle square wave.
Mm-hmm.
And the one the shortest cycle or pulse width square, it's a little bit it has a lower bass content,
mm-hmm.
right, and more overtones. So I always try to think like a mastering engineer when I program synthesizers, like because you have a lot of problems for a mastering guy or the mixer guy if you program something without thinking ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a dull, like I have the filter fully open right now, and on the first oscillator I just have a triangle wave.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have two of the squares, you can really like dial in if you want the bussy high end
mm-hmm.
without the lows or with.
Yeah.
And then, if you want to detune it even more to get like a more wobbly kind of sound.
That's
You
rad.
can, without creating inconsistencies in the lower register.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I
And then you
mean,
can actually get like real, and it can be good or bad, right? You can easily get it just a little. You can make it too fuzzy in the low end where it becomes ill-defined. But sometimes you want that, you want that little bit of. I hope you guys are hearing that too. The unison. Just a little bit of detuning between the voices kind of gives you a little bit of rub. It gives this little wiggle to the sound that can sound really cool and really powerful. It can kind of make things sound bigger, but sometimes it can also kind of make things sound a little out of tune because it's just not as accurate anymore.
right. And speaking of that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go over to the screen because there's this older kind of the older UAD plugin from you guys that's actually really, really good. That I use a lot for like micro delaying, the mod delay.
Mm-hmm.
The way you can use that and filter out the low end is perfect.
Oh,
So,
you gotta show us this. I've recently, since we started Office Hours, we had an episode where one of our hosts, Tom, showed us all of the included plugins that come with Apollos, and one of those is Precision Delay Mod. I was totally sleeping on this plugin. I completely forgot that this is in the plugin list at all times.
okay. Okay, so we have a monophonic signal. We might have like a mix that's really dense
Mm-hmm.
in the middle. So we want the bass to open up, but we don't want phase issues in the low end.
Mm-hmm.
Enter.
Enter the delay mod. So you're basically using this to kind of give it that stereo. The goal here, right, is to give it stereo, but without really muddying up the middle, the bottom end part of it. Looks like you've got that on the instrument track, not the audio one. There you go.
Yeah.
That's cool. So now, and the way that you got it hooked up right now is so it's basically adding. So
It's on a mono channel, so it's not.
mm-hmm. Well, here let's do a little Luna exploration here. So to get this in stereo, because this is questions come up for a lot of people. So I'll show you the absolute quickest way to do it. Yep. All right, you may already know. You're so fast at this. Yep. Hit the sends. You know it. And then we're up on the left hand side where it says routing. Just hit the plus sign next to that. There you go. It'll by default try to make a stereo bus. Yep, you can choose. Yep, exactly. You can choose to either have it clean or with the Neve summing enabled. And so now you can, if you want to, you can just drag and drop that over onto the stereo track. It'll automatically become a stereo version. I think one track over, it landed on the main fader instead of that your bus. Oh, I'm also going to show you another shortcut you're really going to love, which is Shift W. So Shift W automatically just hides all plugin windows.
Thank you.
It's a huge one. Yeah, exactly. I've caught myself, and especially when I was working more on the laptop, I was constantly, do something, Shift W, go do something else, Shift W, and it brings it right back. It's kind of nice to have that super quick.
And I mean, I updated today, and it's so nice, to get like new updates with new shortcuts, and the way, like, when you receive a new update, you see it, like all the new.
It's so cool, right? Well, and it keeps on. This update is integrated over 300 and 350, I think, user feedback suggestions. So the fact that everyone's hitting the feedback button inside of Luna is directly responsible for over 300 of the improvements just in this update. So that's between 1.0.3 and 1.0.4. It's insane how much improvement they put into each update. It's so cool.
I mean, I'm sure you guys get a lot of trolls out there complaining, but I just want to say that I'm super grateful that anyone gets into the DAW game. I think it's courageous, and I'm grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So now that we've got that, so you hit Shift W, you can quickly hide those windows, and also Command W works for individual windows. So like I can see right now, you're kind of getting a little bit of a bug on that delay mod one. So yeah, a lot of times you'll just want to close it and then have it reopen. And now it should draw, unless it's very unhappy. Yeah, maybe do like a remove and then add it back.
Okay, I'll remove it and add it back. So we'll do it from the.
Oh. You can tell your laptop is like, no, please, no more, mercy.
By the way, this is something I really like as well.
Oh yeah.
You can like input text into when you're adding a plugin.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know, me too. It's one of my favorite things. Yeah, you just quickly start. Yeah, you just can instantly kind of grab and go with what you want.
Yeah. Okay.
So it looked like the key to that setting that you had, right, is like different delay times for A and B, and then you were using the thing in the middle, which is the filter section of it, to keep it from bleeding down into the bottom, right?
Okay, so let me just get my. So first of all, maybe we can sort of show off what you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
This is.
Yeah, and then we'll just need to go back to the channel and turn the send on a little bit. I think we're still sending 0 dB.
Are you like? Can I hire you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You don't want to, $5 an hour. Oh, there it is.
So this is creating almost like a psychoacoustic effect.
Mm-hmm.
That I like to call super stereo clients and stuff.
Yep. It's the thing that when you click it on, right, you just get that instant, oh, like you go from right here in the middle to like, wow.
Yeah, and it's like on really good monitoring. Like you can usually judge really good monitors for monitoring, not just the monitors, but like if you can hear sounds coming like from even outside of the speaker arrangement. And this is a trick that, you can make anything feel like it's just like coming from here, especially in headphones. So yeah, let's
So you've currently got So this is the full fat. This is fully. You got 120 on one side, 200 on the other.
And I like to go as low as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you get the most extreme effect.
Nice.
And I used to listen to Autechre a lot in the 90s. They were like super into this stuff.
Oh, that's so cool. And for people if you're looking at this plugin, you're like, where's the feedback knob? It's labeled recirc, or like recirculation, and it's actually labeled in kind of an interesting way, right? Where it's about the seconds. It's about how long does that recirculation kind of loop happen, which is very different. It's essentially a feedback knob, but it's just labeled and kind of controlled in such an intuitive way.
That's I haven't thought about that, but that's actually really cool.
Right?
But like, if we want to keep a consistent mono compatibility,
Mm-hmm.
we want to use this one over here.
Yep. This is the important part. So this will now mean that everything below 260 hertz. There it is.
So I learned a lot from. I used to work on a desk that had a built-in goniometer.
Okay. So like you're talking about the phase correlation, right?
You have like an X
Mm-hmm.
like this, and there's a dot, and it animates the phase relationship between the two channels.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have like a dot going like this,
it's perfectly out of phase.
if it goes like this, it's perfect mono.
Yeah.
And for I've been working a lot with artists that cross over between club culture and pop culture and radio.
Mm-hmm.
So working, like getting my head around this was like the solution to, like, when we mixed, for instance, like Silent Shout with the knife. I was like, how do I make this sound? This has to sound good in like a kitchen radio and in a massive club sound system.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to get the bass end just like super mono. Because if I don't do it, the mastering engineer is going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically a philosophy that I've kept ever since, to sort of mix in a way that the mastering engineer doesn't really have to fix anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you can do that, you control the mix on a much higher level, because if you make mistakes in the low end with the phase relationships and stuff,
yeah,
mastering engineers are gonna walk all over you. They're gonna
they're gonna do whatever they want to your track, and you may get it back, and you'll be like, what happened?
I've learned the hard way.
Yep. I'm pretty sure all of us have learned that the hard way at some point, right?
Especially when you do mixes that come back to you on vinyl.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I really recommend to everyone out there to check out, phase correlation meters and goniometers, because basically what you're seeing is a visual representation of how a vinyl needle will move.
Mm-hmm. Ah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That channel is left, that channel is right.
Mm-hmm.
Makes vinyl sound.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but yeah, that's totally right. That is basically representing the needle groove and what's kind of going into it.
Then it starts making sense. Like if you have a sound going like this on a record, it's gonna make the needle skip.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a record out there where it's like a new record. You get it from the shops, and it always skips in this specific place on the record, and it bugs you.
That was the cut.
Because it's not monophonic enough
in the bottom. Yeah, and that's because that's always the thing that they're trying to optimize against is the low end information. If it gets too stereo, it just the needle doesn't know what to do, and it just jumps right over. So by doing this with the delay mod, by filtering out that 260, you're now saying do the super stereo thing, but don't touch it anywhere down here.
Exactly. Still a single oscillator sound.
That's so crazy.
Massive.
I know.
So I'm gonna go back and
that is so cool. And so with the little bit of feedback, that's what's giving that ghosty. You're giving a ghostly trail to it. But if you bring that down, if you take that away, now you're getting a little bit tighter of a sound.
Sorry. Yeah, let's come down on the emphasis.
Ooh.
Feedback knob is like the difference between this and this.
Dude, I can't believe the difference. And so, is that all the way cranked up basically on the feedback, or is that still just only part of the way up?
Right now, it's all the way up, but as I said before, there's the sweet spot thing to it where what's coming into the external input volume inputs is dependent on the sustain level of the envelope. If you're droning or if you have a sustained note, also the volume outputs.
Yeah.
So if I come down on the output volume, the lamp is not lighting up, it's not overloading. Now it starts to overload. And it's definitely something that you can overdo. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
But, and yeah, I mean, just I've done that a few times where so gratifying to do it. And you regret it later. The necks fitting in.
and you're like, apologize to the mastering. I overcooked it just a little bit on that one sound.
Yeah. You gotta watch out with and also this is where the sub harmonies start to come into play. Like if I play a higher note. Single oscillator again. Let's bring in the feedback a little bit.
Oh man.
And then if you start getting the envelope into the game and sort of find these
Nice. So, and that's how you can quickly go from like, we just traveled from like really fat bass, super stereo to like, cool, you can just simplify it, really open up your attack times on on your two envelopes. Now you're kind of getting into more droney, ethereal, but you can still add that using the
Yeah,
feedback to kind of add a little. I mean, it's just adding nonlinearity. It's adding
yeah,
unknowns to the sound. It's like, yeah, it's feeding back into itself. It might add a little distortion. It might kind of change how the filter responds. Like, but that's the whole point.
exactly. And those non-linearities are the thing. Like
Hmm.
uh, you can you can mimic any of these sounds with anything else, and it's not going to work.
Yep. It's just not.
Uh,
It's just not the same, and that's the biggest thing I think I've heard from a lot of people when they've compared, a real Minimoog to the new Luna Minimoog compared to, there's countless copies of Minimoogs that have been done in software and hardware, and like, especially on the plugin side of things, like they'll emulate all the functions, right? They'll have all the same wave shapes, 3 oscillators, like they'll have the same arrangement of things, and functionally, yeah, it's what a Minimoog is. But then when you listen to it, you're like, it, it's like a Minimoog, but it just doesn't have that same sort of like depth or character in the sound. And that's all the analog, the nonlinearities, the like, it's the stuff you wouldn't expect exactly to affect the sound is actually what matters the most.
yeah, and another one of those super nerdy details that I stumbled upon in a forum many years back. That's interesting, I think, to discuss or like getting really deep. Is the envelope shape of the Minimoog is also had a fault in it, where this, the CV coming from the envelope to the VCA is like ramping up.
Mm-hmm.
It has this roof where it should really go above, but it stays
Okay.
on. Even if you have like a really short sound like this. Um, and if you think about it, it's almost like the envelope is overdriven or distorted
Yeah.
before it hits the VCA.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, one of the little tiny nuances that add to the Minimoog sound being conceived as just that much more powerful.
Oh yeah. It definitely, and it's one of those just characteristic things that it's really interesting about the way that we brought basically the same modeling process that we use for UAD plugins, and have brought that to the Minimoog and to analyzing how on a component level how it works. But then it's one thing to measure it, but then it's another thing to the tuning and the refining of all those characteristics and all those little things. I'm sure if you guys have been watching lots of Office Hours, you've seen us kind of talk with Connor and Lev. But we had a great episode with Will Shanks during Neve Week, and he's one of our head. He basically helps tune all of these UAD plugins, and like people didn't quite get. We spend years working on these plugins. Like these aren't just like we come up with them and get them out really fast. It's years and years of development and tuning and refining and all the effort that goes into making these sound as true as possible. Like that's our only goal, is to make it so folks like yourself who are familiar with the real thing, when they pull this one up, you have the same reaction.
I'll tell you a funny story. When I first time I came to the Moog factory in Nashville, I walked in the sound lab, and there was like a brand new System 35 and a brand new System 55 and a brand new sequencer cabinet. And I've played a few Moog modular systems, but I'd never played one in the exact original configuration.
Uh-huh.
it blew my mind. But it was one of the filters that was like, it was something was a bit off with it.
Mm-hmm.
I was, I just landed, came straight there, and I was so excited. And this guy came into the sound lab and was like, "Oh, sorry, I have to take the filter with me." I was like, "No, you cannot take. I don't. Like this is my dream right now."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I got to calibrate the filter because it's not calibrated." I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Just pull it out and do it by ear." Gene, stop.
Yeah.
Amazing man.
Mm-hmm.
He calibrated the filter by ear, just pulling the module out.
Trim pot. Yeah.
So even with the real stuff, you really have to trim it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, that's great. Well, awesome. Well, man, Christopher, this has been so cool to, it would be, sorry we had so many like little technical things going on here, but we actually made the most of it because we got a lot of time to kind of hear, both about your experience with the Moogs, but also kind of see how intuitively you grasp towards a Minimoog, and then showing off the super stereo trick, man. You just gave away your one of the coolest tricks I think I've seen pop up on here. So, man, yeah, it's just been really fun geeking out with you about these Moogs and learning more about your history, both with Moog and Universal Audio stuff. For people who want to kind of follow what you're doing or learn more about the projects that you're working on, what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing?
You can follow me on Instagram, and I think there's a single out from the Cut Copy record, the latest mix project that I did. It's due for release anytime. So
Nice,
beautiful record.
awesome.
I have a lot of these little tricks in it.
That's awesome. Well, cool, man. Well, man, this has been so much fun hanging out and geeking out here with you today. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this session as much as I have. But this is technically this is our second session of the day. We had Jamie. Jamie came on, took over our council a little earlier, doing some synth jams. He's going to be back at 1:00 today. He's going to take over again and keep on nerding out with his rig at home. And then at 2 p.m. we've got Fab DuPont on. We're going to be doing a new episode of Tales from the Switch, and if everything goes according to plan, we're going to have Will Knox and Louis Cato with him, and they're going to be showing us how they're collaborating and writing and producing and recording a song from 3 different studios across the world, all inside of Luna, using Zoom, using a lot of cool technology in the background to make it all happen live. And then at 3 or 4, we've got, let me make sure I want to quote you guys right times, so I don't want to get this wrong. So yeah, Jamie's back at 1, Fab's at 2, and then we're on at 4 p.m. This afternoon with Tycho. And we're going to be geeking out more about the Minimoog. So if you guys have got questions that we didn't get to in this session, definitely come back this afternoon, and we'll get to them then. And cool. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you guys back here later. All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.